It's January 26, 2026. Welcome to YesToHellWith.com. I have two videos about the same topic to share today. The first uses humor to make a point and perhaps to make you slightly angry. The second video uses the same topic, but in a perfect reinforcement of our recent series about authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, and obligation. The more we process these concepts with examples, the more familiar they become, and the more we understand. I encourage you to watch both completely. Finally, these videos demonstrate the universal application of the Liberty Dialogues in all countries. The concept of jurisdiction is universal. The Liberty Dialogues are now in New Zealand, Britain, the Netherlands, Sweden, Canada, and more. People are eager to learn about how governments truly operate and who they are as individuals within the context of government, and how to engage governments more constructively and effectively. The Liberty Dialogues are now a separate offering on jamesbowersjohnson.com as a 3-volume series at a 17% discount. This series will change your perspective and approach to government generally. So let's begin. In Britain, they now require that citizens must register either flocks of chickens or even one chicken. When most people hear that, they think it's just a bird, it's just a form, it's for public health. But that's not how administrative systems grow. Systems grow by turning private life into categories and then turning those categories into control. So let me explain it using plain language and using words the English language already has given us. First, the words are real. For example, a donkey is often called an ass. A rooster is often called a cock. A young hen is often called a pullet. And yes, a cat is often called a pussy cat. Those are real words with real meanings. And now watch what happens when government paperwork meets and collides with human psychology. Imagine the government announces a new safety policy. If you have an ass, a donkey, you must register. If you have a cock, a rooster, you must register. If you have a pullet or a pussy cat, you must register. And instantly people panic and say, well, I have one of those. I guess I better comply. Not because anyone proved authority, not because anyone established jurisdiction, not because obligation was proven, but because the system used a simple mechanism, which is self-reporting. And once you register, something changes. You don't just own an animal anymore. You become a keeper of the animal. A file, a number, a regulated subject. Now here comes the real trick. Once the registry exists, the system doesn't even need you to have the animal. It only needs you to identify as that particular category. And here's where it gets even more dangerous over time. Because over the years, people lose touch with the original meaning of words. They lose touch with the original purpose of the statute or law until they don't know anything at all about both the law and its wording. They stop remembering what words meant in the first place. They stop asking what the category was designed to describe, and instead they inherit the assumptions and presumptions. For example, most people have no sense whatsoever that a taxpayer is within federal jurisdiction only, someone within the reach of a particular statutory scheme. They don't even know that the distinction even exists. They never learned it, or worse, they were never allowed to learn it and then rebut it. Because from childhood forward, they are trained by mainstream conversationalists of all walks of life. Parents, teachers, officials, employers, accountants, and even the media. And the message is always the same. You have to file. You're a taxpayer. That's just how it is. Everyone does it. Don't ask questions. Just comply. So they don't treat taxpayer as a defined term. They treat it as a universal identity, a label, a role they were born into and readily accept it. And that is exactly how people get captured by systems, because the registry doesn't need force. It needs forgetfulness or abject ignorance. When a culture and people are subdued for whatever reason, they become ignorant, apathetic, and fearful. They become obedient to a system that does not even apply to them. The system needs people to lose the ability to distinguish between what a word means and then what they've been told that it means. And this is the same with chickens, roosters, cats, and donkeys. If you lose sight of what registration is doing, if you forget why the law exists, if you forget what the words originally meant, then eventually you don't just register the animal, you become the animal or the classification of the keeper of the animal, and you identify as the category. You become the ass, the cock, the pullet, or the pussy cat. And once you accept the category as who you are, the system no longer needs proof. It acts upon the presumption that was created because you've already handed them the only thing they need, your self-identification on paper as an ass. Now let's connect it to the tax return, the taxpayer. This is the exact mechanism behind the federal income tax scheme. Most people think filing is just reporting income. No. Functionally, filing is registering yourself into the system as a taxpayer. It is you signing a document that says, I identify as the regulated subject. I identify as the filer, the taxpayer, as someone within the framework. And once you do that, the system doesn't have to prove jurisdiction first. They don't have to prove authority because you just volunteered as that category and placed yourself into that category. You created the footprint, the record. And this is why order matters. Authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, and obligation. Because if you start with obligation, if you start with what do I owe, you've already accepted the category of taxpayer. You've already registered yourself. So yes, Britain is ensuring and encouraging and forcing people to register a single chicken. But the deeper lesson is universal. The system expands by getting people to volunteer into categories, first by what they have and then by what they identify as. And once you accept the category, you will be treated accordingly. The bottom line is that you are either an ass and a taxpayer, or you are a free man or woman with the awareness and knowledge, the wisdom and truth to remain free. Send this to anyone that you know who still thinks that filing is just completing and complying with paperwork. And as for you, free men and women, may truth reign supreme.